You've probably heard the term muscle relaxer thrown around, right? But what does that actually mean? Well, it's not nearly as simple as it sounds. So today, we're going to clear up all the confusion. We'll get into the two very different kinds of muscle pain, and most importantly, how to find relief safely. Let's do this.
Okay, first things first, I want you to think for a second about the kind of muscle pain you've felt. Is it that sudden, sharp, whoa kind of cramp you get when you've maybe overdone it? Or is it something different, like a constant, deep stiffness, a rigidity that just never seems to let go? The answer to that question, it is way more important than you think.
Because here's the deal. The cause of your pain is what determines the right treatment. And grabbing the wrong kind of medication isn't just going to be useless, it can actually be pretty risky. So figuring out the what and the why behind your muscle pain is absolutely step one.
So, let's break down the two main players here. It all boils down to the difference between a muscle spasm and muscle spasticity. I know, they sound almost the same, but trust me, in the medical world, they are worlds apart.
So what's really fascinating here is where the problem is coming from. A muscle spasm, that's a local issue. Think about a Charlie horse, or that awful knot you get in your back. The muscle itself is what's acting up. But spasticity, that's more like a wiring problem. The signals from your brain or spinal cord are getting crossed, telling the muscle to stay tight all the time. It's a neurological thing, not just a muscle thing.
And this really drives the point home. You see muscle spasms linked with super common stuff, right? Lower back pain, a stiff neck. But look at spasticity. It's tied to serious neurological conditions like multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, or ALS. You can see right away why mixing these two up is a huge deal.
All right, so let's say you're dealing with one of those common muscle spasms. Where do you even begin? Well, the advice is pretty clear. You start with your first line of defense, something you can get right at the pharmacy. Yep, for that nagging, acute lower back pain, or maybe a tension headache, the official recommendation is to start with over-the-counter or OTC treatments. The idea is to try these first before you even think about moving on to prescriptions.
Now this brings up a question I get all the time. Can you just, walk into a drugstore and buy a bottle of something called an over-the-counter muscle relaxer? Well, if you're in the United States, the answer is probably not what you think.
The short answer is no. There's no specific medication labeled muscle relaxer that you can buy over the counter here. Instead, your go-to options are things you've definitely heard of. You've got your anti-inflammatories, we call them NSAIDs, like ibuprofen. They work by calming down the swelling that's causing the pain. Your other main option is acetaminophen, like Tylenol, which takes a different approach by basically telling your brain to turn down the volume on pain signals.
Okay, but what happens when those OTC options just aren't doing the trick? That's when your doctor might step in with a prescription. And guess what? Just like the conditions, the prescriptions fall into two totally separate categories.
First, you have antispasmodics. And just like the name suggests, they're for muscle spasms. Now, these don't actually work on the muscle itself. Instead, they work on your brain. They basically have a sedative effect on your whole central nervous system, which helps the muscle finally relax.
The other category is antispastics, and these are built specifically for muscle spasticity. These are much more targeted. Instead of that whole-body sedative effect, they go straight to the root of that wiring problem. Some of them act like a roadblock for those faulty nerve signals, while others just go work directly on the muscle to tell it to chill out.
Okay, this is so important. If you only remember one thing about these prescription meds, please let it be this. Antispastics, the ones for those neurological conditions, should never be used to treat a simple muscle strain. It's the wrong tool for the job, period. All right, let's get a little more specific. It really helps to know the names of these drugs so you can be a more informed patient. Let's take a look at some of the common prescriptions you might see in each of these groups.
So for the antispasmodics, you might recognize brand names like Flexeril or Robaxin. These are generally prescribed for just a short period of time. We're talking 2 or 3 weeks max, really just to get you through the worst of an acute injury. Now for the antispastics, you'll see drugs like baclofen and dantrolene, and you might be surprised to see diazepam or Valium on this list. Even though it's often used for anxiety, it also works to relieve spasticity. See how different this list looks? It just goes to show these drugs are playing a totally different ballgame.
And now we've reached what is, without a doubt, the most important part of this entire explainer. These medications can be a huge help, but they absolutely come with some serious risks. Your safety has to come first, so let's be crystal clear about these warnings.
Let's just start with this quote because it's that critical. Certain muscle relaxants, especially drugs like carisoprodol, brand name Soma, and diazepam, can be habit-forming. That is why it is so crucial to take your medication exactly as your doctor tells you to. This is not just a suggestion, it's a vital safety rule.
Okay, here are 3 rules that are absolutely non-negotiable. Number 1, avoid alcohol. Look, alcohol is a depressant, and so are these drugs. You put them together and you're doubling down on slowing your system. That means your breathing, your heart rate, it's a dangerous combo. 2, do not drive. These drugs make you drowsy and slow your reaction time. It's just not safe. And 3, do not stop taking them cold turkey. Your body gets used to them, and stopping suddenly can lead to some really nasty withdrawal symptoms. You have to taper off slowly with your doctor's guidance.
And there's a little more to keep on your radar. Drowsiness and dizziness are super common, so be ready for that. They can also interact with other meds and even some herbal supplements, like St. John's wort. And finally, if you're over 65 or have any liver issues, you have to be extra careful because your body might not process these drugs in the same way.
So, with all of that information, how do you actually put together a safe and effective plan? Well, it really all comes down to one thing: working as a team with your doctor.
Here's a quick checklist for when you absolutely need to pick up the phone. If you experience that spasticity-type stiffness for the first time, if your symptoms are getting worse or happening more often, if you're having really bad side effects from your meds, or if a joint starts to feel so stiff it's almost frozen, don't wait. Call your doctor right away.
At the end of the day, it's not really about just finding a pill to make the pain stop. It's about understanding why you have the pain in the first place, so you can have a smart, safe, and informed conversation with your doctor. Because really, when it comes to your own health, being informed is the most powerful medicine you have.